My man, you said something that kind of resonated with me. You said you were in a room with guys like Stuart Scott. We haven't talked about this off air, but Stuart Scott is a big reason why I decided to pursue this career in media. I consider myself sort of like a Swiss Army knife where I cover everything from the UFC to the NBA to the NFL. But what was it like, right? Because I consider Stuart Scott a giant in our world, in our space. What was it like sharing spaces with Stuart Scott, whether it be for a long period of time or a limited period of time?
So I didn't have that many conversations with him, but I'll never forget a conversation I had with him at a UFC live event, and he was there as a fan, and I had left ESPN at that point in time, and he had suggested how happy he was for me. But he was training in mixed martial arts when MMA Live launched in 2008. And I don't think it was a lack of self-belief or confidence on my part, but my inner monologue was like, why is Stuart Scott not hosting this show? Like,
Mhm.
not only does he know MMA better than I do, he trains in mixed martial arts. He has a massive following. He's the guy. He could bring all this attention to our show. But I don't know if his contract was prohibitive or if he just couldn't fit it into his schedule or what. But I remember thinking he should be doing MMA Live. So you can imagine what it was like for me to get to meet him and get to know him a little bit and then have that conversation with him at a UFC Live event, probably a year or two before he passed away. I'll take that to my cremation chamber, man. Just an absolute giant of my industry, an absolute legend. And he was an impetus, I think, for a lot of us getting into it. I never thought I could be as good a Sports Center anchor as he was, right? But I certainly loved his style, and I loved the liberties that he would take to sort of be an original in a space where a lot of people were pretty cookie cutter. So an
Right.
absolute legend, certainly is on my Mount Rushmore of mentors and guys that I looked up to in this business. Sean McDonough gets a seat as
Mhm.
well. But I love Stuart Scott. And, I guess the only thing I would say is that in 2019, when we launched our deal with ESPN, it was a little bit bittersweet for me because I thought at the time, can you imagine what Stuart Scott would have meant to our UFC
Man.
coverage if he was still here and still an active member at ESPN. So, man, I wish he was still around because I don't know if he would be calling fights with me or what he'd be doing, but he would be factoring prominently into this UFC ESPN equation to be sure.
I agree with you, my man. He definitely was as cool as the other side of the pillow,
That's
as
right.
he would say.